gentlemen.
All right, how are you?
Good to see you.
You too. Been a while. Send me an email on this.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have this right.
He's doing a good job. Well, I think, I don't,
Doesn't matter to me, but just for purposes of anybody's visually looking in the audience, you're off 160, saves a big difference from who you are.
Okay,
Really?
so where are
Oh.
we off?
okay.
You're supposed to be there and you're supposed to be,
Okay.
supposed to scoot down one.
All right.
You mean I'm Dave Pearson? Hey,
Yeah.
move, quick, quick. Thank you.
Here.
I was
Terry?
thinking it was the other way.
Where's Alice back here? Yeah, I'm saying Gay Jones. Am I Gay Jones today?
Get your stuff off my
Oh,
chair.
sorry.
No, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm all right.
That's what I thought.
Cause see, where would Ozali go? I know he's a little thing.
Okay, we're back.
Well, this is what's weird, you can't see. Oh, well, new room.
All right.
I'll be cooking.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. I still, now, is this goes with this, right? That's what I was trying to figure out before.
Yeah.
All right. There's too much junk here. Well,
All right then. All right, the hour having arrived and the board of directors that are going to be present this evening here, we will go ahead and proceed with the beginning of our meeting. I call to order the board of directors' regular meeting for Thursday, November 14th, and thank you all for coming. First order of business is to pledge the flag. And repeat after Mr. Clark.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the Metro Cable announcement is as follows. The open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, November 16, 2013 at 1 p.m. and Monday, November 18, 2013 at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. At this time, we will take the opportunity to give the public an opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. I was informed by the board clerk that we have a speaker request, but they would like to speak during a specific item on the agenda.
I understand there's someone that wants to speak to action item number 6.
All right, then, action item number 6 being the sphere of influence. All right, then. All right, at that time, we will hear staff's report, and at that time, we will give the member of the public that wishes to speak the opportunity to come to the lectern and speak to the group. All right, then, first item would be our consent agenda, approval of our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Motion by Director Jones, second by Director Scheidegger. Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Directors Monk.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Scheidegger. Gould.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, I was a bit hasty in getting to consent items. We actually have an awards presentation this evening. Chief Henke is going to present a life-saving commendation to Police Officer Scott McCartney.
Test 1, 2. Okay, it does work. If Officer McCartney could join me up here, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll read a little history on the phenomenal job that Officer McCartney did, and then present him with his award. On June 30th, 2013, Metro fire crews were dispatched to a residential structure fire on Malaga Way in Rancho Cordova. According to dispatch, Rancho Cordova PD officers were on scene and reported a working fire. They informed dispatch that the house had been cleared of all occupants. Metro fire crews arrived and reported that they had a working structure fire at a two-story home with heavy fire at the rear of the house with possible extension. Metro firefighters initiated an offensive fire attack through the front door and placed a second charge line to protect exposures. According to the captain, when firefighters entered the home, there was thick smoke layer approximately 4 feet from the floor. After one attempt to enter the residence, it was determined that it was too hot for the crew to enter the structure beyond 4 feet or so. One firefighter was injured during his attempt to search for victims and locate the fire, and at that point, the crew exited. Vertical ventilation was completed so the engine crews could enter the structure. Unfortunately, due to the excessive buildup of heat inside the structure, it was determined that partial structural collapse was probable. It is important to understand the details of this fire because Officer Scott McCartney of the Rancho Cordova Police Department arrived on scene first, and without delay in regard to his own safety, he entered the home to search for and evacuate the residents. With heavy fire coming from the back of the structure, he made entry into the structure and evacuated 3 older women, and then entered the house again to make sure it was all clear of all occupants. Without the quick actions of Officer McCartney, the residents very well may have perished. It is with great honor that I present to Rancho Cordova Police Officer Scott McCartney this certificate for life-saving commendation. This commendation is for extraordinary efforts to protect and preserve human life on June 30th, 2013. And before I hand you this, Officer McCartney, I would say a couple words. First off, congratulations and a job well done. Second, your department, the Rancho Cordova Police Department, and as a branch of the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, has just a phenomenal relationship with Metro Fire, which we've enjoyed over many, many, many years. And your professionalism and your department's professionalism, the Sheriff's Department and the Rancho Cordova PD as that offshoot are just phenomenal in what you do every day to help us out on the street. And so with that, it is a great, great honor and privilege to present you with this life-saving commendation.
Did you notice that the chief of police from Rancho Cordova is here too, present? You may
Do
want
we
to.
know what his name is?
She's here.
Do we know what her name is?
Thank you. Really, thank you very much. I'm very humbled for the efforts of what you all do in firefighting. I've been very fortunate in my career to work around a lot of firefighters, and it's always been my goal as a law enforcement officer to extend whatever I can to firefighters because I think we're the same. We just do different ways about our business. And having been in Rancho Cordova for a long time, actually since it incorporated in 2004, there's been nothing. I mean, I've stole their meals. We've said, go guys, we'll take care of the inside. We've had a lot of fun with them and barbecued with them, and it's just a camaraderie, I think, between law and fire that you just don't see in other areas. And I hope that our department, as you said, Chief, continues that relationship with you guys because, really, we are there to protect you, and you guys protect us, so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
The Board of Directors would like to thank you, Mr. McCartney, and we appreciate seeing your chief here and your other colleagues. Thank you for coming out to support your officer, and a job well done. Thank you. Next on our agenda would be the action items, and item number 1, Chief Wells, you're going to give us a job description on the board clerk.
Good evening, directors. With me tonight, of course, is Melissa Maddox, HR manager. And what we've done is we, at the direction of the board and the fire chief, we put together a job description with input from the fire chief, of course, and Sherry Kelly, our board clerk currently, Council Lavra, and then Melissa Maddox and her entire staff in HR. And basically, the job description that we have currently for the fire, or for the board clerk, was developed in 2005. And the substantive difference between these two job descriptions will be the oversight of the person employed in this position when we hire. And so, and I'll read you just in the job summary. It says, appointed and directed by the collective action of the Board of Directors with the direct supervision by the fire chief to support the board functional needs as the district's governing body. And so, obviously, we're here tonight to address any questions that you might have in the job description, and we can relay any of your concerns from the board. I would like to note that we would, as an administrative policy, have especially having board oversight prior, would have liked to have come through the policy committee process on that, or advise the board first of this policy in an administrative policy format. But tonight, we need to press this quickly so that we can get in the job search to fill the position. And so that's why we went directly with the board tonight to show you this, tell you about it, take input so we can start moving forward with the job out in the public to recruit for the position. So if you have any questions tonight, we're here to answer those for you.
Has everybody had an opportunity to review the job description? Are there questions by members? All right, we have a motion by Director Scheidegger and a second by Director Clark to approve the job description as presented. And Board Clerk, will you please call the roll, or, excuse me, do you have a question?
No, had there been a second, Mr. Chair?
Yes, there was a
Okay,
second.
Thank you.
Director Clark.
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll go ahead and say aye.
I'm sorry, Kelly. I'm sorry.
Give it an aye. All right, then. It's quite all right. Moving on to, thank you for your report, Chief Wells. And you will be here for our action item number 2 and 3.
Correct, and I think we'll keep the same, same group up here, and with the input of the fire chief here as well. Tonight, we're also talking about an amendment to resolution number 0707, sections 3, 6, and 9, and 13, which affect the non-safety senior management, and unrepresented confidential employees. As you know, the fire chief is the authorized representative, and is tonight submitting an attached amendment to the non-safety resolution with the adjustments to these above-mentioned sections. And essentially, and I'll just summarize the section 3. The intent of this was so that we bring everybody in the management level. These are unrepresented, and I'll give you an example of the types of job duties: secretaries, the accounting specialists, the HR specialists, the managers in the building, all the way up to include the deputy chiefs and the CFO, the chief development officer, that group. So what we did over the last number of years, actually, we changed some of the things in our management staffs at the senior level, and with the intent of leading on into the future. Now we're making the corrections down to make everybody in the district cohesive and together and aligned more or less with our benefits. And so tonight, like in section 3 as an example, we've actually reduced the management employees in this group, has reduced 80 hours of administrative leave down to 40 hours. So we're taking in that section. Section 6 is pay in lieu of PTO. They were able to go 240 hours, And now we've got that down to 120 hours, which is consistent with the bargaining that we did with 522 to allow them to pay back or get paid for 120 hours of PTO. Also in Section 9, senior management at that time, and back in 2011, actually 2012, we cut in roughly April, we cut our package initially down to 75%, and then we went to 50%, and then we had a sunset clause that would say in January 1st of 2014, we'd come back and meet with 522. And so at that point, our sunset clause is coming to, and so we just wanted to put that in this resolution. I think it was actually a technicality, but we wanted to be transparent. And that group will go back up to the original group of hours for sick leave of 15.75. In Section 9, there's a requirement in your leave banks to have an X amount of number of hours in your leave banks before you can sell back hours. And so we, in that group, they had to have 740 hours, but we've dumped it down to 567 to be consistent with our other contracts to sell back leave. Let's see, and then in January 14, the last Section 13, we have one group of individuals back in 2008 that senior management was allowed to have 5% of continuing education. And specifically, and it's actually in the resolution, it's lined out, the management and unrepresented confidential had that benefit before, and then it was reduced to 1.5%. So here we've asked for this group to we've taken 80 hours down to 40, we've taken 240 hours of sellback down to 120 to be consistent, but it needs to be consistent both ways. And so that group we've identified, the continuing education will go to 3% in 2014, and then up to 5% to match the equivalencies in other contracts of continuing ed of 5% in January of 2015. We did that over a 2-year period. And that would be Section 13. So for tonight, the recommendation to the board would be to adopt the attached resolution of the above-mentioned changes affecting the non-safety senior management, and unrepresented confidential employees. Chief, did you have anything to weigh?
You've heard staff's report, and we've got a question. Director
Chief Wells,
Gould.
I have a quick question for you. What kind of restrictions are on the continuing education component? Is it similar across our employee groups where there are some limitations or typing out so that we know what kind of actual CE? So I know that there's a plethora of continuing education out there, some of which may have no direct impact on the duties of the person in the department. So I'm just wondering if if there are some identifiers throughout our contracts and all the different employee groups, or is it just go get continuing education and at some point you could get a 5% increase off your base?
Well, no, there's actually a policy, and I have it here in front of me. It's policy continuing education program unrepresented, and it's section number 141.01. It was effective in July of 2010. It's not in your packets, but it's
Okay.
a document that we currently use.
And that's a standalone policy that addresses CE? Good enough.
Correct.
Thank you very much for that.
Director Scheidegger, you have a question?
Thank you. Chief Wells, I think it was section 9A, I'm just not clear on this, talking about senior management gets 15.75
Yes.
hours of sick leave per month. Is that up and down? Is that across the board for all employees, or is that just?
Yeah, that was, the 15.75 ended up being the, what everybody got before the senior management team came in and led by example and said, we'll cut our sick leave down. Going back to 15.75 is across the board for everybody. So we're simply,
You're moving that back?
right, but it was already moved. I think what's important here is, by contract, it was going to happen January 1st anyways, but the administration felt very, very important that we bring it back up in the idea of transparency. So it didn't just kick back in like it automatically would have, and somebody said, well, nobody said anything about it. And we just felt that it was more important to bring it back up for transparency purposes.
And I think that's good, and I just want to make sure this is across the board, it's not.
Yeah, it's roughly a 22% conversion factor. When you're on a day, 40-hour assignment, it's converted by 1.4, and it takes that number to 15.75.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Wells, when we're talking about the CE, continuing education incentive, Give me an example of how that works. Is this, I'm a little confused. Is this is to pay for tuition or symposium or conferences?
No, well, and that's a great question. Essentially, the way the CE process, and I'm kind of paraphrasing that, it's a 4-page, it's actually, 4 pages policy, because there's different requirements. But essentially, it can't be, it's hour for hour of instruction based on 24 hours of credit in a year. And so essentially, if you go to a 3-day, 8-hour-a-day class, that would be 24 hours of instruction. And it has to be in a pre-approved curriculum that your supervisor then ultimately signed off by me, actually, or the HR manager, that it meets the needs of the district. It's not, as an example, in here it clearly spells out that you can't count business meetings or let's say I'm a group leader of some community activist type of thing or a community project. It has to be something that's job related. As an example, if you're a HR specialist and you were going to have CEs, it would be taking a class on the Firefighter Bill of Rights, or it might be a class on Family Medical Leave Act, or it might be a CalPERS conference where they're talking about the PEPRA and that type of thing. And then there would be, different disciplines that it can't be something that's, not job related. And even in the policy, it states that it would be expected that when people come back, they share that knowledge with their divisions and that type of thing. It's really, and as an example, it's an interesting concept. This is a very dynamic time, and probably every time has been dynamic to a certain degree, of changes in law and case law, and in terms of employee law, the Firefighter Bill of Rights, a lot of things in insurance, workers' comp, all those types of, regulations with GASB and things in the finance end, or if it were an IT concept. And so I think it's really money in the bank for our agency to have our employees on the leading edge of what is new and keeping their job skills fresh and current, so that they bring that benefit back to us exponentially. I can tell you from an HR standpoint, which I have a little more a personnel issue, if we make a mistake based on not being up on a Firefighter Bill of Rights issue, it can cost, even to correct it, once we've gone down a road we shouldn't have, in attorney's fees and/or fines or anything else that we do. It's literally money in the bank for what we're providing here.
And I would just add to that the people that got it taken away from them, I had just arrived here. It was beyond me that it was pretty personal on what happened. And they happen to be the very people who actually attend all these classes and have to have this continuing education in their field to save us those dollars and make sure we don't have liability issues. So this is one of those things that it was really long overdue and the right thing to do, and we just needed the right time to fix it.
Any other questions? I have one for you, Chief. Chief Wells, have you guys been able to forecast what you expect this cost to be to our general budget?
I do. Actually, we did an analysis on how many people are currently getting the benefit currently, how many potentially could be getting it. We have 36 individuals that could be getting it. Currently today, we only have 20 that actually take advantage of the opportunity at the 1.5%. So if we take in 2014, when it goes to 3%, based on what we're paying today, if the same 20 people were involved in the process, it would go up to a total of, at 3% cost of the district, it's $3,834 a month, and it'll be roughly $46,000 per year in addition to what we're doing today.
And that's section K, 13K. You were referring only to
That would be in
continuing
14, and then in
education.
15, it would go up to $6,391 a month, and it would be an increase of $76,000, or actually 77, just about rounding up.
Okay.
So, but in reality, we're paying $23,000 for it today. So it's actually going to be a difference of, $23,000 to $46,000. So we're going to be going up $23,000 the first year. And actually, if you amortize that over mid-year, it's going to be half of that. And then next year, when you get into 14, fiscal year fully in 14, it'll be $46,000. And then if you ended up doing a calculation where everybody, all 36 people did it, which is, we budget actuals, but in potential, I like to look at what's my worst-case scenario. By 2015, if you had a full 5% actualized over the full 36 people, it would be $11,000 per month and $135,000 a year invested.
And what I would point out is we stripped what's the leave equivalent that we've taken away from them on cashing out?
Well, and this would be the worst-case scenario. Typically speaking, if everybody in that 36 group sold back 240 hours of vacation as they used to be able to, and then they cut it back to 120, we'd be saving $162,913 a year.
Yeah, so it's a wash.
Okay, then. Any other questions? No further questions. What's your pleasure with this item?
I make a motion, we adopt.
Second.
There's a motion to adopt by Director Gould and a second by Director Wood. Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Clark, Jones,
Aye.
and Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Chief Wells, you have an amendment to the terms and conditions of employment for safety employees.
I do, and this is exactly the same language essentially for the safety contract, with the one exception of this group had continued to have the 5% the whole time, wasn't singled out as a group as the other was. So essentially, the changes to this will be in Section 3, it's 80 hours down to 40, exactly the same, in administrative leave. The pay in lieu is reduced from 240 to 120 hours. And the senior management will start resuming the normal 15.75 hours in January 1st of 2014.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Director Gould, second by Director Wood. Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Wells. Number 4, it is the agreement for the Western Area Power Administration Incentive Program. Chief Cockrum?
President Kelly, Director, Scott Cockrum, Deputy Chief of Support Services. Tonight I have some good news on some funding that we were going to be able to receive. Basically, in June of this year, we were approached by Sacramento County, actually came to us and advised us that they potentially had some funding to do some upgrades and basically anything that we could do for some power reduction. So we looked at, and this was basically over at McClellan Airfield through the business park over there. So we looked over there and we recognized that we had a significant need in our HVAC system for the radio shop and the fleet facility over there. Actually, the radio shop facility was something that had been on our top of our list of things that we needed to replace for several years, so this was pretty timely. So we went through a pretty significant assessment process with WAPA, with PG&E, and with the county, and were able to secure some funding to do the replacement for both of those facilities. So basically tonight, what we're asking is that you approve us to receipt, and I'm going to back up a minute, and actually the majority of the work on this was done by Steve Borgelin, our facility supervisor, so we really appreciate the work that he did on that. So tonight what we're asking for is that you approve that we receive the funding for $154,550.56. I will say that we did actually have a PG&E rebate for the balance of $10,000 and $25. We actually had to go out to bid for this entire project, and we received 3 bids and went through the whole process before this could be approved. So we already have that all approved and the fees and that. The balance of the $10,000 we had a PG&E rebate for, but their funding ends the end of December. So we had to have the job finished essentially by now rather than started. So we'll reapply for that next year. Unsure if we're going to receive that. However, we're still pleased to have received the $154,000.
So move, I mean,
Anybody have
really,
questions?
anybody gonna
I
oppose this?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to say, I think this is another example of fine work by our department. Everybody has to replace their HVAC. Nice work, guys. Thank you.
And if I may also, we were unable to get the board staff report in timely to vote on the work that is to be completed. So if you don't mind, I'll place that on the consent for next meeting to be approved for the work.
Please include as much information as you can on that one, so we can have a look at it. My only question is on Fleet, how do you condition the air with
They have a-
12-foot doors that are 16 foot high?
Yeah, they actually have a pretty large office space in the center of the
So
two,
the office
bottom
area.
two bays there.
All right, and I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to enjoy some energy savings in at least a couple of our buildings. So there was a motion by Director Scheidegger. Oh,
I second it. You made the motion.
that was Gould and Scheidegger on this one, and if you could please call the roll.
Directors Monk.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
All right, then, action item number 5 is an agreement, 2013 State Homeland Security Grant Program for boats, inflatable boats and trailers. Mr. Davis is going to present this.
Directors, Larry Davis, Chief Development Officer. This item is a request for approval to accept these funds. Back in May, we applied through the County Office of Emergency Services for State Homeland Security Grant Funds. And we were successful in that application for $255,000 to purchase 3 boats. And the background on this is the operations chiefs have put together a 4-agency boat program. The idea being having the boats being interoperable. Right now, our boats are all very different depending on which boat you're on. And so the 4 agencies with that kind of need got together and decided to go in for a program, develop a program where the boats would be similar. And we were able to get funding for 3 of the boats. And the agencies that will be receiving the funding or for the boats will be the City of Sacramento, Metro Fire, and Folsom. So what we're requesting is approval to go forward and accept the grant and make the purchases.
Larry, Mr. Chair, I have a question. Larry,
Question,
thank you.
please.
Thank you. You mentioned 3 agencies, but in our materials, we also see that Consumnes is included. And obviously in their neck of the woods down south, it seems logical that they would have something as well. Are you saying they're gonna partner in this, but they're not part of the receiving funds? Is that what I heard?
The plan is for all of the agencies, it's an overall program for these 4 agencies to unify and be interoperable in their boat operations.
I can answer that more direct, I think, is that we could only get 3 boats through Shishkap this year. I sit on the gang of 5
Right.
On that. And the plan is to get the additional boats next year Shishkap. So we could only, we're working on that Shishkap grant. We're working with the Sheriff's Department, the city PD, everybody in the region. And so it's how do you divide up those rare dollars and stuff? And so that's the plan.
Right. I guess my question is does Consumnes already have a boat so that they can respond this coming year while we get new boats? They do. So it's not as if they're part of the partnership, they just don't have a piece of asset that we could have down there versus if we get a new one, we could rotate one down there until we get more funds so that the whole county, because that's a long way away and they've got a lot of water down in there.
No,
But it sounds like they were covered.
No, we intend to pursue additional funding to get them a boat also. To replace their boat. But in this particular grant application, we were only able to get funding enough for 3
Yeah, well,
boats.
that's awesome on its own right. That's really great. Thanks, Chief, for that clarification, and thanks, Larry.
Sure.
All right, then,
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Director Gould with the motion, second by Director Clark. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Monk.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Gold.
Aye.
Clark. Jones. And Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, item number 6 on our action items is a Sphere of Influence Amendment, Natomas Fire Protection District and Sutter Point. Mr. Davis?
Okay, I'm trying to put a graphic up here.
Listen to you, thank you.
Hopefully, this will be representative. The item before you is a request to direct the fire chief to initiate reorganization action with the Sacramento Local Agency Formation Commission in 2 areas. One is to annex the area known as the service area for the North Natomas Fire Protection District in northwest Sacramento County, and the Sutter Point development, which is just across the county line in Sutter County. So I've got a couple other maps up there, that are better than this one. But this one outlines the North Natomas. And this one is a much better map that shows the Sutter Point also. So the area that you just saw in red on this map is green, and the Sutter Point area is purple, just north of the county line. And all of this is in the northwest corner of Sacramento County. The international airport's there, the gray in the middle.
And it should be pointed out that this is unincorporated in Sacramento County. It is currently covered under a subcontract. The North Natomas Fire Protection District is a dependent district of Sacramento County. Sacramento County subcontracts to the city of Sacramento to provide 2 engine companies for fire protection service in that area currently. This first action that we are taking is simply to start the process. It will be our intention to have very open discussions with the city of Sacramento and with labor as well, because we do not want to impact any city of Sacramento fire jobs or staffing criteria in that area. So it probably would be in our best interest to maintain those stations there. And because we have boundary drops, to work very closely with them so that as we move forward in this arena, there's good protection for the entire area. As you know, we gave, I believe last year, close to 3,000 calls for service into the city of Sacramento. They've had their challenges just like us, and so it's important that as we move forward, this isn't a one-sided a move here. And but the first phase of this is to at least start the process. It's not something that happens overnight. We will have to do municipal services reviews. We have John O'Farrell here who can answer any questions. And this will be a process that probably just to expand the sphere of influence, which is the first thing that has to happen, is at a minimum of 6 to 9 months, and it could be longer than that. So it would be our intention to open those discussions. Our big issue clearly, as well as with organized labor, 522 represents both the city of Sacramento and our firefighters, and so it's imperative that we honor that and make sure that we don't impact that. And then, of course, going up into Sutter County, that's a project that we were approached on over 5 years ago, I believe, for that project. And that really, both of these are at the request of the landowners that are out there that have approached us several years ago to do this. So this really is just the first step. There are many a slip between the lip and the cup as we move down this process. It's got to be thoughtful, it's got to be methodical, and it has to be collaborative.
All right.
Mr. Davis, I have a question. On this picture that you have on the screen right now, we see a gap between the Sutter Point purple area and our blue current sphere of influence there in that one area. Is that part of what's going to happen at LAFCO, is a discussion about that band right there at baseline?
And that's actually you see that's the levee road, and that area is the levee and areas around the levee. So, and that is exactly what's going to happen at LAFCO, is that all the issues and all the stakeholders will have an opportunity to go through the LAFCO process and and be fully heard, and the issues will be fully vetted, and, you know, the facts will be brought forward, and the decision rendered by that, that board.
All right. Any questions of directors?
Will Mr. O'Farrell be giving a presentation, or is he available to answer some questions?
He's available for questions.
Well, once,
Yeah, in the regular proceedings.
all right then. If directors don't have any questions at this time, Mr. Davis, could you please have a seat, and we'll allow the gentleman that wanted to speak?
Sure.
This is our speaker that filled out the slip?
I was asked to fill out the slip. I think there might have been some confusion. I am your consultant, as you probably know. It's a pleasure to be here, Chair Kelly and other board members. Some of you may know that because of my interest and my efforts way back when in the late 70s and the early 80s, the original Arden and Carmichael districts came together. I was sitting in a boardroom just like this. My daughter at the time was 9 months old. I passed her off to one of the fire personnel in the audience, and she sat on his lap as I made a presentation about the advantages of bringing not only Arden and Carmichael together, but many of the other districts north of the river and ultimately south of the river. So I'm pleased to be back here tonight again to talk to you about your interest in expanding north and west into Natomas and Sutter Point, and possibly into other areas in the future as the case may arise. I was the LAFCO executive officer for 26 years, 25 years, so I'm very familiar with the process. That's why the chief and Larry reached out to me, at least originally. I'm also involved with the landowners in the North Natomas area, that portion of Natomas that's not in the city of Sacramento, the quote-unquote Natomas Vision area. A group of landowners came together about 6 years ago now, and they formed a informal coalition to begin to move an entitlement process forward, to convert the land as we see it now as rice fields and other kinds of uses into sectors for urbanization. So I began working initially in Natomas, actually sometime before that, but the landowners that I work with currently are the OC family, Brookfield Development, and Jeff Norton. Gay had asked some questions through the chief about where are we in that process, so I'm here to either talk about the LAFCO process or the development process, or both, as they may interact and overlap. But the process has been underway, as I say, in earnest for about 6 years. The county has actually adopted a resolution to move forward to create a special planning area for Natomas. That special planning area will actually delineate areas that will urbanize and areas that will remain in open space, habitat, and in agriculture. There'll be choices for the landowners to a degree. The areas that are designed for urbanization or designated for urbanization right now are the northeastern quadrant, everything above Elkhorn and east of 99. The Boot area, which is down, I don't know if we can rotate this map up or not, Larry, but the Boot area is the area that's closest to the city of Sacramento along the Sacramento River. There's an area on the other side of 9970, which is adjacent to Metro Air Park. It's about 1,200 acres. That's another area that's designated for urbanization. And then there's a piece south of I-5, Interstate 5, which is about 400 acres. So it's those 4 different quadrants that are moving forward at varying paces. The owners that I'm working with all own property in that northeastern quadrant. OC family has 1,000 acres, Jeff Norton has a couple hundred acres, and Brookfield Development controls about 2,600. That whole area is roughly 6,000 acres. The board, as board supervisors, as I indicated, adopted a special planning area. At the same time that they did that, they directed staff to begin to create a new habitat conservation plan. And that habitat conservation plan will not replace the plan that is in place right now that has been adopted by the city of Sacramento, it applies to Southern Point and Metro Air Park. It will work to complement that HCP. To date, roughly $6 million have been spent on the entitlement process and the biology work to create those new conservation elements and the new HCP. Within the next probably 60 to 90 days, the notice of preparation for an environmental document will be circulated. You are certainly an affected agency, not only because of your interest in amending your sphere and ultimately annexing, but you're an adjacent agency as well, and you serve area to the north. We have been working with your staff really from the beginning, and way back to since 2008, we've been working with the Park District out there, Rio Linda Park District. They have current service area boundary, which goes to 99. They want to pick up the balance of the area that goes all the way over to the river, all the unincorporated area. We've been working with the Natomas Mutual Water District, Reclamation District 1000, the Sanitation District, the Natomas Basin Conservancy. We've worked with virtually every interest group out there, and we want to make sure that as the development moves forward, services are in place so that when that happens, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years, I'm not sure, but when that happens, there's a strong county presence through the special districts and the county in terms of the general government structure to offer that umbrella services that the community will need.
All right. Comments or questions of Mr. Farrell by anybody?
So it sounds to me as if Mr. Farrell will be a partner alongside this process as we move forward tonight. You'll be working with this department. It sounds like the chief's nodding up and down, and obviously we think that's a good thing. So I'm prepared to make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion on the item. My guess is that if anybody had a concern, they would have mentioned it. We do have an additional speaker, is that it?
No, I'm
No,
sorry,
he-
this is the
Okay.
gentleman.
All right,
He's the consultant slash speaker.
all right then. We had a motion, I'm sorry, Director Gould made the motion, who seconded?
I think what-
Director Wood. If there are no further questions, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Clark, Jones,
Aye.
and Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And Mr. Farrell, I imagine many of the employees of Metro Fire and this Board of Directors owe a debt of gratitude to you for the work that you did to consolidate fire services in the region.
It was in concert with everybody that's, been part of this organization, all their predecessor organizations as well. I'm very proud to have been part of that whole process, but thank you very much.
You're certainly welcome. Well deserved. All right, then, that concludes our action items. We have one presentation item.
Right.
Mr. Davis, you have a feasibility study for annexation of the Latrobe Fire District?
And I will go ahead and I'll let Larry pull up the map and then I'll speak to it as he does that. I think the board's well-versed that if we have the opportunity to expand across county lines, it's clearly a benefit to us as a district. Hello? And this proposal here is no different. Approximately a year and a half ago, we were contacted by the Latrobe Fire District, which is located in the western edge of El Dorado County and on our eastern border, which you can see in the map there. And the discussion was whether we could provide some sort of service to them. They're currently served by strictly a volunteer agency. They're approximately 39 square miles or thereabouts, and they're a pretty rural community. As you've been reading the newspapers over the last year and a half, and quite frankly, you could go back if you're reading the El Dorado papers the last 20 years, there has been multiple studies done about how they're going to fix their fire problem in El Dorado County. They have approximately 10 to 12 districts that are basically on the brink that can't survive economically. And so about a year and a half ago, we met with Latrobe. We put on a presentation for their board of directors. And at that presentation, the El Dorado Hills Fire Protection District expressed a desire that they really should be the ones that provide that fire protection. And so Latrobe at that point thanked us for coming, said have a great day, and if things don't work out, we'll give you a call. And they continued to negotiate with El Dorado Hills over the last year, I would say, or maybe a little bit longer. And lo and behold, we were contacted by Latrobe approximately a month and a half ago, and they were unable to come to an accommodation with their neighbor in El Dorado County, and said that they would be amicable to have a discussion with us. I and deputy chiefs met with the fire chief and two of their board of directors preliminarily approximately a month ago to identify exactly what it was that they were after, because we had already had this discussion once, and we weren't interested in being a wedge piece or a tool to be used to force another district to come in and take them. They assured us that that was not the case, that they were dead serious about an expansion of sphere of influence and annexation. This is not a contract for service, and for their entire district. With that, we said that we would be interested in sitting down and having some concrete discussions about that, and that we would come back to our board to basically inform our board that they desired to have a discussion. And if there's no objection, we will have those discussions. In the meantime, the Latrobe Fire District, at least as I'm told, decided that they should put out what they call an RFP, but really it's about a 50-plus question document that they sent to El Dorado Hills and to us, with a variety of questions that need 1 to 2 sentence answers. And some of them I can't answer today because I haven't sat down with them to ask them exactly. You know, they've got questions like, what would you do with this vacant parcel of 5 acres that we own that has water and power on it? How would that fit in? I don't know unless we actually had a further discussion on that. So I was a little disconcerted that they called it an RFP, and I informed the Latrobe District that we would not be responding to that RFP. That resulted in some calls back to me saying, no, we're just trying to make sure that El Dorado Hills and you both put things in writing that answered the questions you already did, but we wanted it in writing. And I think the reason for that is pretty clear. This is a big leap for them, actually reaching across to, as we were referred to by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the big box fire department in Sac Metro. Actually, he didn't refer to us. That was the director, chairman of the board for Latrobe. But the chairman of the Board of Supervisors was concerned. And he published an article in the paper, which I thought actually was very good. He talked about how they should consolidate and all that. And if they could do that, then there would be no need for us to come into their county. But that doesn't appear to be what's going to happen. And so with that, I've included some articles. The chairman of the board of directors for Latrobe then put an Our View piece in. We have remained extremely quiet about this because I believe discussions need to be held until there's a good understanding and there's actually movement to move forward. You don't discuss where we're at, because at this point there's nothing to discuss till we sit down. But they wrote Our Opinion piece, and it was actually a very well-written article as well on that Latrobe's going to do what's best for Latrobe, and if that's Sac Metro, that's Sac Metro, and they're going to explore all options. So you've had both of those articles that are included in your packet for you to look at. With that, I received a letter from the County Board of Supervisors of El Dorado County requesting that I appear before the Board of Supervisors to answer their questions in regards to this. And it's become very clear that there are some members up there that are pretty exercised about this whole possibility that we're apparently going to come charging across the border, which is not the inclination at all. So I had a phone conversation with Board of Supervisor Veerkamp yesterday, who's a former fire chief at El Dorado Hills. Great conversation. Said, This is in the very exploratory stages. This is about sitting down and talking if there's mutual interest and whether there's the ability to even do anything. I said, if I come to the Board of Supervisors, I don't have any answers to give you. My board hasn't directed that we would actually make a formal request for annexation. And he absolutely understood that and said, okay. And I said, when we get some discussions, if there's not objection, and I can get to something that's concrete, that's in writing, that my board of directors and the board of directors of Latrobe think are something that's plausible to move forward, then I would be at the right time happy to come and be able to answer their questions. And so that's really where we are tonight, is informing you that we'd like to, if there's no objection, continue the discussions with them. We're currently filling out the 57 question survey and sending it back to them. I would anticipate that there would be some actual discussions probably in January, because I can't imagine a lot happening during the holidays. And it would be my sense of it that we would sit down, staff and perhaps some directors at your direction, with staff, with some of their directors and their staff, and work through these issues to see if there's something that's mutually beneficial to both parties. And if that's the case, and we could reduce that to writing, and we could get that far down the road, then perhaps we'd have something to go ahead and take to further action by this board of directors. So that's where we're at today. I just did not feel at this point with this particular project that it was prudent to put it on as a LAFCO move at this point. I think there needs to be more questions that are answered and understanding between the two agencies and the electeds of those agencies, the policymakers, before we would make that step. But this really was information only. The ERAF issue was brought up by the director of Latrobe, and I thought he very interestingly characterized it as the ability for tax dollars not to go to the state, but to be used to help small districts across county boundaries. I like that representation that he made, and that's clearly what we're here to do. So that's where we're at. I do not envision this being a full-time staff type thing. It's going to be a reserve, kind of a feeder for our reserve program, which they just are out of volunteers and able-bodied people. It's the demographics have changed, and if we could incorporate something like that, it would give them a lot better protection than they have today. So that's where it's at, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Chief, I have a question.
Please do.
Mr. Chair. Latrobe Fire, independent special district,
Yeah, it's an independent special district,
5-member board,
5-member board.
elected by area or general?
I don't know that. I would imagine it's general because it's so small, but I do not know the answer. I could find out. General.
And I see,
Chief,
I see 2 stations,
correct.
both staffed?
No. They're volunteers. I mean, this is a rural area where they actually take the rigs home sometimes, the volunteers, so they can respond from there. And predominantly a wildland urban interface mixture of old-time landowners, large ranch owners, and then a smattering of high-end homes as well that happen to be the more modern stuff that's gone in there, and a lot of ranchettes. So that the model they're looking for is not to have a full-time staff fire department up there. They're looking for something like a reserve program where we could put people up there during the daytime, really, when their volunteers are not there. And it would be a great training ground for us, for our people.
I appreciate you letting us know this. I think this is a great opportunity to continue the discussion about regionalization, and this just seems a natural process that we go through as we look at doing exactly what was discussed earlier that happened 30 and 40 years ago. This just seems like the next generation of this continuation. So I appreciate it, and I'm supportive of this moving forward.
Any other questions of the chief or Mr. Davis on this issue?
No, just a comment. I like the idea of the expansion. I'd like to see a business plan on how we plan to, like you said, a reserve program, how business plan going forward is a reserve and everything, something reduced writing so we could see it.
And we already had a preliminary one that we presented them to kind of give them a snapshot of how we thought that would work. That, I believe, would come out of the actual negotiations where we sat down, as I discussed, and came up with the who, what, when, where, and why, and we'd put that together, reduce it to this is the plan, so that the board would have all those facts and figures in front of us.
Yeah, I would appreciate the same thing for the Natomas and Sutter Point as well, as how we're going to stretch our resources and the plan moving forward.
And you will get that in both, in the Thomas and Sutter Point. It's what's called the municipal services plan that has to be prepared. It shows two things. It shows how we're going to provide the service to the new area that we're actually annexing. Then it also has to show that there's no negative impacts to the areas that we currently are servicing. So that is a very, very detailed study. This district absolutely understands that it has to, and staff understands that it has to be a very, very detailed, well thought out, written, defendable, and deliverable study, or it's never going to pass LAFCO either.
Well, plus moving forward, the need for additional stations or equipment or manpower and everything.
Right, and we've already got the study both for the Jackson Highway out here. We also have the stations already identified for Sutter Point, how many they would need. Am I correct, Larry, on that?
Yes.
And in the Natomas area. So what'll happen is that'll get reduced to coverage, how you'd work with developers, how they would be financed, and it'll go right with our municipal services plan that we're developing currently, that we're hoping to get to you sometime, probably March, April, May of next year.
Okay.
Cool, Chief, can I inject something on the MSR? The genesis of the landowners approaching Metro was the MSR for Sutter Point, and it was obvious from their MSR and our calculations that there's cost savings, same cost savings in consolidating addition, the districts and the administrations, and that there were savings for us to provide rather than them creating a fire department there on the border, because they're 45 minutes from Yuba City, which is really the closest organized fire department.
And I want to point out too on that is that this was really driven by the landowners to start to an extent 5-6 years ago, as you heard Mr. O'Farrell who works with them. And so that's really what we're responding to. Again, there's many a slip between the lip and the cup. We've had a change in CAO up in Sutter County and that. We've had several meetings with Sutter County. There's hitches that come and they get along as we move forward on that. We're working through those. But really that whole idea is not to have a separate a brand new administration building, a brand new training facility, creating your own paramedic program for your engines. I mean, all that type of stuff. So it's just economy of scale.
All right, then. Any other comments by directors? I think we're all in favor of seeing you proceed with this. Everybody understands that the regionalization effort is a benefit to Metro Fire and those other agencies that we may serve at some point in time in the future. All right, then. Thank you, Chief, again for that. Mr. Davis, thank you for your time and the hard work that you've obviously put forth on this. All right, we have one closed session item. What's your pleasure? Do we run through these items and handle closed session at the very end?
Sure.
Run through, okay. President's report, I have nothing. Fire Chief, your report.
President Kelly, Board of Directors, the first thing I want to cover is exceedingly sad, tragic, and with heavy heart that I inform you that Dawn Melhoff, who's the wife of engineer Terry Melhoff, who works for us, passed away on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013. For those of you that were at the groundbreaking for the USAR, Dawn was there at that event. She was a deputy director, I believe was her title, for the California Office of Emergency Services, so she was very high up in the State Office of Emergency Services. Way too young to have this happen. Chief Cockrum and Holbrook and Chiefs Castros and a whole wide variety of people have been working very, very hard to help Terry in this time of tragic loss. There will be a service next Wednesday, a celebration of life, and it will be at 11 a.m. at the Rolling Hills Christian Church, and I will make sure that the clerk gets this out to everybody. 800 White Rock Road in El Dorado Hills, business attire Class A required. It was a double hit for Terry as a member of our department. It's unfathomable. But then us in a different respect, some of us didn't necessarily know Terry as well as we knew Dawn because of the work that we'd done with Office of Emergency Services, just two different deals. So a great, great human being, always had a smile, absolutely dynamite smart, and a real loss both to the district and to her family and to the citizens of the state of California. So with that, we will get the information out for the services. Also, unfortunately, Dick Crooks, a lot of you guys remember Dick, passed away at home on Saturday, November 9th, 2013. Dick had his family at his side. Mrs. Crooks wanted me to pass on that the last few weeks were filled with many visits and phone calls from the fire family, and that those moments meant the world to Dick. And so Dick was a past board member, and as well as a volunteer firefighter with the Arcade Fire District. His celebration of life will be held this Saturday, the 16th at 11 a.m. at the American River Community Church, 3300 Walnut Avenue, Carmichael, California, and a reception to follow. On a more positive note, but avoiding tragedy, in a training exercise approximately 2 weeks ago, what's called Urban Shield in Oakland, California, our helicopter, Copter 1, was performing a rescue lift off a moving boat, which is the Oakland Fireboat. They had gone down a day earlier to practice with the Oakland personnel for this drill. And as they had made one successful extraction, they decided they wanted to smooth it out and do it again. When they did that, as they were lifting off the patient, which was strapped to Captain Tom Neville, his web harness caught on a flange on a butt that came out that normally would have a water monitor that they had removed so they wouldn't get snagged on it. And instantaneously, according to training, once the feet leave the boat, the operator of the boat deaccelerates and turns to the right. The problem was we had the helicopter attached to the boat. We have film footage of it from the helicopter. It doesn't do it justice. It basically yanked the helicopter over onto its side. You can see Battalion Chief Lozano, who's the chief on the ship, and I'm going to forget the other young gentleman's name. Aaron Phillips. Both of them struggled to hit the squib switch, which is an explosive device that cuts the cable. They were able to do that. At the time that they got it cut, they were about 60 feet. They originally started about 60 feet off the water. The helicopter had two pilots and recovered as its skids hit the water. And at the point that it was on its side, the blades were allegedly about 10 feet from hitting the water. So we avoided a huge tragedy, and it really comes down to training. Those guys did exactly what they were supposed to do. We have brought in CAL FIRE's aviation people to do an independent analysis. We do not think that we're going to find anything that was negligent or that, and it's about training, but it's a huge lesson. We sent a blue sheet and a green sheet out statewide to other agencies operating helicopters. And I won't list the agencies, but we had some call us back and say, wow, we actually fly with the breaker disengaged because we never want to accidentally discharge that device, and they're changing their policies immediately on that. So it's a learning experience for everybody. We do not. The one last thing I would say with this is that actually, it was Copter 2, excuse me, that did this, our upgraded copter. I have been told that had it been Copter 1, we don't think we necessarily would have had the same outcome because it doesn't have near the power. It's an older ship. It doesn't have the horsepower. So I will most likely be coming to you. We have an RFP that's being opened on Monday, somewhere around December, January, to come with an RFP to have that ship redone and repowered, because we're in the air business. It's my opinion as the chief that we don't want to be burying anybody because we don't have the stuff and powered to where it needs to be. And that was one of the things that kind of hit us, is they said, you know, Copter 1 doesn't have that same pull to fight that boat, and basically that's what Copter 2 did in a very short second to second and a half. So we avoided disaster there, again, the crews just absolutely operated phenomenally. I was with the Oakland Fire Chief last week. She is eternally grateful for the training and that went on. Once we have the final report done by CAL FIRE, we will bring both the Oakland personnel and our personnel together and do a complete debrief and training on that. As far as meetings and events, we had the big groundbreaking ceremony at the Zinfandel training site on the 31st of October. If you went out there today, from the groundbreaking to today, you wouldn't recognize it. I mean, they are moving that fast. We are, in one aspect, very, very lucky. We've had no rain, and that is allowing Roeblen and them to go like heck. And they're pouring concrete, and they believe that they only needed another week, and that was really this week, to get to the point where they needed to be, and it looks like we're going to have clear weather for the next couple weeks. So their thinking is that they can have all the concrete down, and then at that point it can rain and they can continue to do the work that they need to do, and they won't be mired in the mud. Also, yesterday I did an EMS cost recovery presentation for the city of Oroville that came here for their city administrator, director of safety services, police chief, director of community development, and 2 council members on EMS. They came down, and Chief Clough and I worked with them. Today, in my absence, Chief Cochran attended the UASI and the UAG meeting, Urban Area Working Group. Tomorrow, I'll be a speaker at the Rancho Cordova Luncheon, and also tomorrow's the Metro Chamber State of the County. Staff will be attending that. And then on Saturday, I will be attending the retirement dinner of Bill Holmes, who was the Ranger Unit Chief for Amador El Dorado, who now is the Northern Region Chief. He's in charge of the whole northern half of the state for California. After 44 years, he is going to retire. He really is the guy that brought the collaboration and really helped us with our air program. Just was a phenomenal partner with us over the last 5 to 7 years working with us, and really is responsible for bringing CAL FIRE even higher up to the first-class agency that it is today, of an all-risk emergency delivery agency. So we'll be giving him a plaque from Metro Fire, and I'll be representing Metro Chiefs as well as the Sacramento County Fire Chiefs at that event. Our next Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, we have the Citizen Stakeholders Group, to keep you informed, is on the 20th of this month. And I would hope that after that meeting, we will be able to come back to you with a concrete recommendation to move forward in the endeavors that we're doing and looking at alternative revenue sources and stuff. So it's finally coming to a culmination. We're pretty excited about that. Also on the 23rd is the Dean Baker Crab Feed. And so everybody needs to make it to that. They're really down on numbers. They only have about 100 and something people. A lot of us in the command staff that normally would go are at a whole bunch of different events at the same time. So we're spread out all over the place, which makes it impossible for us to be there this year, which is kind of unfortunate. It's always a great event. October 29th, we hired Cynthia Hamilton as an office tech in the EMS division. We have no reinstatements, no reassignments. Retirements, Mark Manzoli retired after 23 years of service. Captain Brian James, 26 years of service. Mechanic James Stewart, 23 years of service. Firefighter Thomas Mitchell, 25 years of service. Engineer Joseph Chestnut, 25 years of service. And we promoted both Captains Timothy Beard and Richard Rubialis on November 1st. Recruitment, we have a firefighter paramedic promotional opportunity, internal only. The final filing date for that is 12/2/13. And the minimum qualifications to do that are listed here, but since it's internal, I don't think I need to read those. Yeah, it's a single roll. And with that, that concludes my report. It seems like it's been several weeks since I've seen you because there was a meeting missed in between. But I want to wish each and every one of you just a great Thanksgiving holiday, and thank you for your continued support. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of the chief? Chief, maybe Mr. Wagner can tell me, Chief Wagner can tell me. Pilot's name, Middlewhite?
Van Landingham.
Van Landingham. Okay, thank you.
And I don't know, what was the other pilot's name? What?
Okay.
Gomes.
Well, I ran
Combs.
into Mr. Van Landingham in a retail outlet, and he told me the entire story. And I guess when it occurred, one person was thrown to the side, and he could reach the cover on the button, and the other individual that was in the cab couldn't have reached the cover and the button, but together they were able to effectuate the explosion that released the cable. And it was quite the story to hear him tell it, and just reinforces that feeling you have that Metro Fire is the best out there. Any other questions? All right then. Chief, do we have an operations report this evening?
Yes, we do.
Chief Wagner.
Chief Wagner.
Directors, thank you. Chief, Board of Directors, I'm stepping in for Chief Holbrook this evening. He is on vacation, which is probably the first that I know of he's taken in the last 3 years. With that, just to follow up on that story and what the chief had talked about, another piece of that story that kind of gives you goosebumps, there's a gentleman in the aviation industry that's been in it for 47 years, and he addressed the crew after they had been out of it for a few weeks, and he said, "It's amazing that I'm looking at you. You're the first crew that I've ever talked to after a hoist incident, because all of the other ones throughout history have not gone well, and the people didn't survive." So that training, Battalion Chief Lozano put together the safety philosophy process and program for that aviation program that we have that was taken from military components, federal and state aviation assets, and put that together for the program, and they follow it to the T. We're very fortunate, they're very fortunate, and behind you says teamwork, and just like you stated, they worked that out well that day. I'd also like to give a shout out to Chief Larry, newly promoted Assistant Chief Larry Savage, that went down there during this process and was a liaison between the agency, the Oakland Fire Department, our chief. Unfortunately at the time, fortunately for him, he was on vacation, and seamlessly worked with the organizations to create a process and get everybody engaged that needed to be engaged, get the people that needed the treatment, and work with that right off the bat. So thank you, Chief Savage. To report EMS had 2,817 dispatches and transported 74%. AMR, 24 dispatches with 58% of the time. 3 transports were bariatric patients. Additionally, in EMS, historically, October, November is our slowest time for transports based off of it's just prior to the cold and flu season. This being a drier season as well. Not much temperature fluctuations and all that kind of stuff. So the district is already starting a process for our own employees as well as available to any employee directors as well for the flu shots. The district would advise anyone to get their flu shot in the public. There's no chatter right now of the on medical websites of any epidemic coming up or anything of that nature yet. However, it's always as advised to our own people, especially patient care on a day-to-day basis, and when we have that process going on now. Operationally speaking, we had 16 structure fires since the last report from Chief Holbrook here to the Board of Directors, and that's a little spike in our residential structure fires, but again, not really a panic mode. This time of year is when typically people are starting to heat their homes in a different variety of fashion. So I'd like to remind the public while I'm up here for the agency and the fire chief is to people to remember when they're discarding ashes, to put them in a non-combustible container and make sure that they are completely out before discarding them. We get a lot of fires that are started with hot ashes that are placed in the dumpsters right next to the house, up into the eaves, and so on and so forth. We also get some fires in relation to small space heaters. PIO item has put out press releases to the public to remind them not only put new batteries in your clocks around the time of the time change, but as well as the space heaters and checking your heaters, furnaces, and HVAC systems before you crank them on in the wintertime. We have and this was not reported last time because it was right on the borderline of the board meeting, but we do have an arson suspect that was arrested by the Sacramento Sheriff's Department in conjunction with our arson investigators last month, which is a good thing. So that takes another person off the streets that's creating havoc for the citizens out there. We had a pizza place, a second alarm fire. We call it 1.5 alarms because it wasn't used for a long period of time. One of our pizza places in a large strip mall that started, and fortunately for the timing and the training to the professional firefighters that were out there, the fire was put out just at the time that it did flash on the firefighters, and they had hose lines in place at the right time, at the opportune time, and had all the systems put together to make that a lot less of an event that it actually could have been. Saved a lot of, that entire building could have been gone in no time. And for you animal lovers out there, we did have a residential structure fire. The firefighters did a sweep and a primary search of the residence. That was completed, and in the search they found a house cat that was unresponsive inside the house, brought it out, and recently Captain Quinn, which is in charge of our PIO piece as well, one of our public information officers, got a program together putting on animal rebreathers and oxygen masks for their medical treatment. So we had a basic training scenario. The firefighters knew how to use it. They brought the cat out, resuscitated it, took it to a near emergency veterinarian. The cat is well and at home, and the people that had the property and the animals are very pleased that took place. So happy to report that for the animal lovers out there. 2 daycare centers actually burnt within that structural response well. What I want to report about the daycare centers is our inspection program. Community risk reduction has a lot of negative implications because there's fees associated with it. It's what we do when we go out on our company aspects, the company inspections that go on. It recently was inspected by some of the community risk reduction inspectors that work directly for Chief Daniels and oversight of Chief Cockrum. And with that and the communications that they had and the interaction with our agency and those facilities, both facilities in both fire situations, they had trained professionals that took all the children out of the daycare centers in a timely fashion. They did it orderly. They had all the extinguishers, all the detection systems were in order and in place at the time the fire department got there to put the fire out before things turned anywhere near tragic. So again, we remind you that fire inspections do work. They do work for us, so we pre-plan and we have community input as well as the life safety and health of the community. My last thing to mention, and I'm going to go out on a limb here because I still have that passion for training. The Fresno Training Symposium is coming up next week, and it's our big Cal Chief section, training section. We get 500 people all over, and actually internationally, some of them come in to this gig down in beautiful Fresno, California. And we were able this year through Chief White, Assistant Chief White in the training division, and utilizing our current California Joint Apprenticeship Committee funding that we receive annually on our own training, which reciprocates money to our agency, to send over 20 individuals from our agency down there. And they're going to go to a variety of classes. We put together, I'm the president of NorCal Training Officers Association. We put together about 80 instructors. Thank you, Chief Savage, again. I threw him under the bus and made him the instructor coordinator for this year, and he loves me for it. We put together about 80 fire instructors that are putting on over 48 classes that go on all week down there, and they'll be in a variety of training to get better at what they do, all the way from roof ventilation, auto extrication, heavy rescue, wildland-urban interface, a variety of things. So that's a good thing. That takes place next week. And to finish that off, the last thing that I'll cover this evening is the California Professional Firefighters, which is a segue from CJAC, is they have started a pilot program through Chief Holbrook regionally to assist our citizens out there that's off of grant funding that goes through basically the funnel through CPF. There are $100 gift certificates that we can give out to homeowners when they have a significant emotional event at their house, whether it be a fire, a flood, any type of situation at their home, where that can get them on their feet and their family overnight to some location. And we're going to pilot that through our agencies. Our battalion chiefs will be out there as incident commanders, and they can issue these cards through conjunction with CPF. So that's another good thing for the community that we can offer them in time of need. So with that, that's the end of my report. If you have any questions, concerns?
No? Thank you very much for your report. Fine job. All right then. General Counsel, I trust you have nothing to report at this time?
Nothing to report tonight.
And is there anybody from Firefighters Local 522 that wishes to report?
Hello, I'm Roman Rubalcaba. I'm standing in for Vice President Ty Bailey today. I'm one of the Metro Fire shop stewards.
Thank you for coming.
522's got a few things to report. First of all, we had an election that was just certified on Monday. I happen to be on the Elections Committee. I'm very happy to announce that Local 522 President Brian Rice was elected to another term. Local 522 Secretary Treasurer Pat Cook was elected to another term. Metro Vice President Ty Bailey was elected to another term. Sacramento Fire Department City Vice President, they have a new one. Ryan Henry was elected. And Director of Member Services for Local 522 is Captain Mike Fye from Sacramento Fire Department, won by quite a landslide. We had two captain promotions, Tim Beard and Rich Rubialis. Our captain's list has been exhausted with those two promotions. Local 522 open house is coming up December 10th and 11th from 3 to 7 p.m. It's going to be at the Firefighters Burn Institute, which is the old City Station 9 on Stockton Boulevard. The Dean Breaker Cab Feed, Chief Hinkey touched on it. It's going to be November 23rd, coming up a week from Saturday. I'll be there and volunteering again for another year. Buy your tickets. Guns and Hoses annual football game, January 25th. It's going to be at CSUS Stadium this year. Another incredible fundraising event, a lot of fun. I'd like to see everybody out there for that. Our executive board will be attending CalPERLA conference the week of November 18th. And I have been reassigned from Engine 42 to the training division. So I'll be working day schedule from here on out for the next couple of years. And Local 522 is continuing work on a single role LOU with Human Resources and 522 Committee. And that's all we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's worth noting that Brian Rice, Pat Cook, two retired members of this district, and Mr. Bailey, another retired or an active member of this district, all had white ballots.
Yes.
So their leadership is appreciated by the members of Local 522, and they were reelected to another term. Thanks very much. All right, committee and delegate reports. Executive committee, we have a meeting scheduled for December 12th at 5 p.m. That is prior to our next meeting. Communications Center JPA, Mr. Cochran.
President Kelly, Director Scott Cochran, Deputy Chief of Support Services. We had a meeting here today for the Communications Center. I'd like to congratulate Deputy Chief Joe Jackson on his retirement, and so today he's retired off of the board. His alternate is standing in is Deputy Chief Lloyd Ogan. until such time they find a permanent replacement, which we would anticipate in January or February. The Comm Center continues to receive a lot of outside interest for really they're getting a lot of interest on the energy and the quick change and the turnaround that they've had over there. So they're getting a lot of interest from the Bay Area on JPAs and how to turn their, they want to do a JPA similar in the Bay Area that we have here. So they have a lot of interest there. They actually have interest from Las Vegas Fire and others on really how they turned over so quickly from into a premier communications center. Today what we did the final stage essentially on taking their finances out of the Sacramento County finance. So beginning in January, I think I've mentioned this to you in the past, but beginning in January, unlike us, we have a lot of reasons why we stay with the county. They didn't. And so they moved all their finances out of the county and it's going to be controlled completely in-house now. So any questions I can answer?
Well, I'm sure their stellar turnaround is due to your participation.
It was part of my participation while being on the interview panel for the new executive director.
All right.
And that was about
Well,
all I can offer.
Glad to hear it. Good news.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
California Fire Rescue Training, JPA. The JPA has not met since the last report was given, and it is it's yet to be determined when the next meeting will take place. Finance Committee, Director Scheidegger.
Thank you. The Finance and Audit Committee met tonight. It's early in the year, and it's kind of tough to see without tax receipts, but we can tell that medic recovery is up 12.9%. CRRP is up, and that's without an inspection program. Receipts are up in both those programs. Spending and revenue are on target, and it looks like we might even have a slight increase projected for reserves at the end of the year. The other report we got from our CFO, Ms. McFarland, which I thought was very interesting, concerned actuarial reports, particularly dealing with the pension plan. And it's interesting to note that we have 550 safety employees, we have 68 miscellaneous employees, and we're projecting a 2% increase in our costs, which will take us up to about a 36.3% factor by 2015, something to keep in mind. The good news in all of this is the PEPRA program, the Public Employees Pension Reform Act, which became effective January of this year. And basically, it lowers the costs to the employer, which is good news for us and has a long-term forecast, hopefully, that'll get us to more of a balancing act in terms of our long-term obligations. I want to thank again our CFO, Ms. McFarland, for 2 fine presentations, and that's basically it, unless there are any questions.
No questions? Thank you for your report. And Policy Committee, next meeting is January 23rd. All right, board member questions and comments? Starting with you, Mr. Monk.
I have none.
Okay, Director Scheidegger, or excuse me, Director Pearson, or
Wood.
Director Wood. Looking at Scheidegger, reading Pearson.
I'll get out of the way.
I want to take the time and express to Chief Holbrook, who's not here, but Chief Henke, the recognition that we've had the last 2 meetings of community members for their efforts, their activities. It's wonderful to see the community recognize, their members recognize, and the fact that that comes up from, at least in the most recent case, our battalion chiefs, Griggs and Seiler, that have taken that and made sure that the assistant chief and your office gets word to make sure that these things happen for the people. It's really good to see that. And again, Larry Davis and Chief Cockrum, can't say enough wonderful things about all the work they do to get the money for the department, for the district, to do the things that we need to do for the community. So thank you.
All right then. Director Jones.
I would concur with the comments from Director Wood. Thank you very much. Also, the only thing I'd like to add tonight is a request that we have a moment of silence for both Don as well as Dick at the close of our meeting. Thank you.
I have no comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Director Shattiger?
I too want to again comment on the efforts of this department in getting out and successfully securing revenue. I think it's fantastic. Replacing HVAC is going to happen to any business, and for us to go out and hustle that money the way we did is a real credit. And I love the boat grant too. Good work. Thank you.
The boat grant, I had nothing to do with it.
Director Gould?
Oh, I thought you meant.
Director Gould?
No comment.
Director Gould?
No comment.
No comment.
Still no comment.
Unusual. You want to change your mind?
Yeah.
All right. Once again, where would you rather be than right here, right now, right? All right. Thank you all for coming this evening, and again, just very much a pleasure to be part of this organization. Thank you, and we will conclude the meeting. We will conclude our open session, and the board will move to closed session for a couple of items.